Hi and welcome to Hedgehog and welcome to our two-part series on distress crayons. Today in part one we're going to explore exactly what a distress crayon is. We're going to create a black Bokeh background for a card. We're also going to look at blending on glossy cardstock and a watercolour style blending on regular cardstock too. Then be sure to join us for part two when we're going to look at some more advanced techniques including rainbows, embossing paste and using gesso. So let's get started.
So distress crayons are a pigment-based medium. They come in all the distress colours in various sets, or you can buy them individually. I have set 1 and set 5 here. They're a pigment-based crayon. They have this lovely twizzle top, so there's plenty of crayon stick in there for when you use them up. You can use them on black surfaces because they're pigments, which we'll be doing a little bit later. You can also use them on glossy and non-glossy cardstock. If you're using something that's not glossy, they will dry and air dry fairly quickly. That's what they're designed to do. If you use them on a glossy surface, they may need a little bit of a helping hand with a heat tool as well, but we'll go through that too. Now, distress crayons do not react with water. I have a piece of watercolour cardstock here, just a scrap here, and I'm just going to twizzle this and put a little bit down. Now, if I had a distress ink or a distress marker, when I spray this, the water would react. But it's not going to with the crayon. You can see there that it's pretty stable. The colour hasn't moved. I can, now that it's wet, I can work with it. So if you put some pressure into it, they will move. But you can't just spray them like we would with a regular distress ink. They also have some great resist properties, and we will be doing resist in the part 2 of this video with some more advanced techniques. We'll also be looking at how you take back distress inks and how you can blend distress inks over the top because they won't budge, and that will be in our advanced video. Today we'll be looking at using them on black cardstock to create this Bokeh technique, and then I have stamped around the edge to finish my panel. Excuse me. I'm also going to show you how to use them on non-glossy cardstock in a stencil and to get some nice blends in there. And then again, we're going to blend them on glossy cardstock. So we're going to show you how to do all of these things. And I'm also going to show you one of my favourite techniques of this faux layer. So you can see how I have this nice crisp edge on my lacy layer. And I'm going to show you how to get that as well. So let's get started with our first project. And we're going to be making a Bokeh background on black. So we're going to want to do this lovely Bokeh background, which I've then stamped over using Waffleflower's succulent stamp set. I've used the bold and the outlines, and I've embossed it with white embossing ink, and then I've used this sentiment with the lacy layers die set. This will all be linked up for you as well. You can check out the description below for all of your links. And if you've never done heat embossing, you can check out Hedgehog Hollow's channel, which is my channel, where you can find full tutorials on all of these techniques. So let's create our background. I'm going to be using the same 2 sets throughout today's video. I'm going to be using my brights and my subtles, and I like to mix the two together. Now, the one thing that you'll find when you use it on black cardstock is it depends how much white pigment is in each of the colours as to how bright it will be on your black. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to let you see how I add all these colours, just random circles. There's no particular rhyme nor reason. I'm just going with all my colours, and I'm just going to go all over my piece. Finished piece that you saw me colouring in. Now, you do get a little bit longer to blend when you're on glossy cardstock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger, and I have a piece of kitchen towel here, which I'm just going to moisten so I can clean my finger off as necessary. And what you want to do is you want to blend in a nice circular motion. Now, if you find your crayons are a little bit dry, you will be able to dampen your finger on this kitchen paper, and that will just allow you to reactivate the colour. But what I'm doing is I'm just blending in this circular motion, and I'm going to blend all over. So this is our finished Bokeh background. What you may want to do is just gently rub off any excess crayon, or you may want to leave that on there. Now what I do is I use my heat tool first of all to just try and dry this off. I'm going to heat it up just slightly to the side here before I put it on, because I don't want to melt my crayon, I more want to set it. If you go on it too long, you'll find your crayons will melt and your colour will change, but this will just allow you to help that setting process along so that you can emboss. That's all you really need. Now the one thing I'm going to say to you is do not touch this straight away. This is incredibly hot. This will have some melted wax on top. Give it 30 seconds to a minute just before you start touching it. If I bring this up, you can see the wonderful intensities of colour you have here. And then, as I say, I finished it off mounting it on a piece of craft coloured cardstock. And then I've stamped using white embossing powder the succulents here. And then I've used a sentiment on there cut out with the lacy layers. So that's our first card. We're now going to move on to how to use them again on glossy cardstock, but this time we're going to use them in a stencil. So let's get going. So we're now going to make this beautiful card that I've heat embossed a lovely French sentiment from Elizabeth Craft Designs over the top here. And we're going to be doing the roses with this faux layering. So you can see this nice crisp edge I have around before you get to this lovely scallop, and I'm going to show you how I achieve that. So I take some painter's tape. I'm just going to find the edge. I've pre-cut out the lacy layers die from Waffleflower, some white glossy cardstock, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this onto my craft mat like this, and I'm going to make sure I stick it with an evenish border as much as I can by eye all the way around. So this is roughly 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to stick this all the way around, and this means that it gives me the mask to give me that lovely edge, so it makes it look like there's this extra layer in there when there isn't. And we'll stick down our final side here. Like so. Now we're going to stick down our our stencil rather, and I'm going to pick a nice area like this, and again I'm just going to stick it down with some tape because I don't want it to move as we are working, but I do want to be able to reposition it fairly easily. So I'm just going to take a piece top and bottom just to make sure it's stuck there correctly. And I'm going to want some pinks and some greens, and again I'm going to use this pink and I'm going to use the green. So I'm going to take these 4 colours. So this is Twisted Citron, Pickled Raspberry, Spun Sugar and Cracked Pistachio. And I'm going to start first of all with my roses. So let's twist this so we have some more stick showing. I'm going to go over just the roses to begin with, like this, and you'll find what it does is it collects on the edges of the stencil, but that is absolutely fine, there's nothing to worry about there. And I'm going to do 1 colour of leaves, and I'm not going to do every leaf in the same colour, and I'm not going to do every leaf in this 2-tone, so you want to just pick some leaves out. And I'm also going to do some brighter colours here, and I want some brighter highlights in my rose, so you just want to dot those in too. I'm also going to take my other leaf colour, and some I'm going to do 2-tone, some I'm doing 1-tone. You just want to get some nice colour variation in, and we'll move the stencil in a moment. We'll fill in some other areas, and I'd like some more dark texture in here like this. Now because I'm working with glossy cardstock, I have a little bit longer to work, and again I'm going to use a piece of kitchen towel just so I keep a roll to hand all of the time. And we'll fold this up and keep it to the side. I also just lightly moisten it with my water sprayer so that I can touch my finger on here and make sure it's clean. So I'm going to now work into my flowers, and you'll see how those lovely pink tones we've put in there have mixed. And if you need more colour, we can go back and add that afterwards. So I'm just rubbing all my flowers here, giving it a nice squash down to make sure it's in all of the areas here. Then I'm going to go into my green leaves, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And I'm working in a circular motion. That just seems to give me the nicest blends overall. So we're going over all our leaves, and again I'm going to do the same on these flowers. If you feel like your crayons have dried and that you need to just moisten your finger, that will help move your colour around a little bit. I do feel like this rose needs a little bit more colour though, so I'm just adding some more of that pink in, and we'll add a little bit more in these areas too, like this. So that's our first area done. What we can now do is lift up our stencil once you're happy with your result, like this. And I want to just put a little bit of a rose just in this area here. So I'm going to stick this down. Now I don't want any more to come onto this area, and I don't want any more to come onto those leaves. So I'm just going to put a little bit of tape just to mask those areas in so that we don't get any extra colour there. And I'm going to add some of both of the pinks. You just want to push that colour in. We'll carefully remove our tape. And you can see there how we're building up our areas. I'm going to put a few more leaves down here. And you can just keep working your panel until you're happy with the amount of coverage you have. I like to have all my corners particularly layered up. Let's choose this rose here. So stick it down, and again I want to just mask these edges and some of these leaves. So that's another thing you can do with your stencil, is you can mask areas where you don't want to get full coverage. So I'm going to go in dark, and I think this time I'm going to add quite a lot of light because we haven't got many light pink roses. There we go, and then we can lift it up. So you can see there I've got some nice coverage all over my panel. I'm going to pull my tape off carefully, and it will pull off in the order you put it down, as you pull each edge. And we'll pull up our last one here. You may want to give this a quick blast with your heat gun before you emboss, but again, there's our lovely piece. You can see that nice crisp line down each edge and those lovely blended pieces. And you can stamp over something like this sentiment here. And I've just trimmed down a craft piece of cardstock just to fit this perfectly. Now I have one more design for you, and we're going to use some matte cardstock with stencils to create a lovely watercolour background. So this is our final project for today, and we're going to be doing this lovely background that I've stamped the waffleflower piece over, and then I've used a sentiment from the same stamp set and just to put that on a white piece and popped it up on some foam. You can see under here there's just some foam pieces, and that just gives it a nice little bit of texture. I've put the best on here, and then I put Friends in black on the inside, and I've used the same stamp but just a little corner just to give it that extra little bit of detail on the inside. So let's get started again. I've taped down onto my craft sheet a piece of white cardstock. This is non-porous, normal stamping cardstock. And I've again put my tape around about 1/4 of an inch around the edge because I want that nice crisp edge on there. I'm using the honeycomb stamp from the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous range, and I'm just going to be using my pastel crayons. And I'm going to pick out a couple of colours here. So we'll go with these 3. So we've got the spun sugar, the cracked pistachio, the tumbled grass, and the shaded lilac here. And we're going to need to do it in 2 pieces because our piece is slightly wider than our stencil. So I'm going to start off just picking out some areas like this with my crayon. And again, we will blend them together nicely, but we're going to blend them for more of a watercolour effect as well. And you don't need a full coverage because we're going to spread this crayon out, but you also don't want too many white spaces, and it will gather around the edges of those stencils, but that's absolutely fine. Now some of those first areas we use will already be dry. So again, I've got my regular kitchen towel here. I'm going to give it a good spritz because I want my finger to be quite damp. I'm going to rub my finger on here. It's quite wet now. And now I'm going to work again in that circular motion. You're going to want to clean your finger fairly regularly because otherwise you'll end up with some muddy colours, and we want nice blending rather than a mud effect. So I'm just working my way all the way around, and because I'm using that water, that's going to give me that nice soft edge watercolour look. So let's work our way around like this. So when you're happy with your coverage, you can lift up your stencil And you'll see we've got that really harsh edge. We're going to marry this up here. So I'm going to line this up as best as I can. As you can see here, I've tried to just catch the right places with my stencil. And because it's chicken white, it's fairly symmetrical, so this bit's quite easy to do on this particular stencil. And again, I'm just going to pick out some colours. There we go. So there's all of our colours, and again I'm going to grab my piece of paper in here and I'm going to clean in between colours because I just want that blend rather than mud. And particularly here where maybe you've got two colours and they're slightly different from what you used on the first panel. So you want to really work that as much as you can. And when I lift it up, you can see those lovely blends we have, and we have some texture in here. Now the one thing I did on my original piece is you can see I wanted to soften some of those edges even more. So I re-wet my finger on my kitchen towel and I just picked a few areas, and I'm really a light touch. This is not a heavy touch at all. You want to clean again between, and I'm just fading out some of those really harsh edges like this. Like so. And that just gives you a slightly softer look. And again, when I lift off my tape, I'm going to have this nice crisp edge, which gives me the look of an extra layer as well. So just pull nice and slowly. And this is just a low tack painter's tape that I've used on here. And then, as I say, this is my original card of how I mounted it up. So I've stamped the waffle flower with copper embossing powder. All of these links will be available to you if you look underneath the video. We've used the same sentiment just with black cut out with a basic die. And we've used the same set again on the inside just to add that extra detail. So thanks for joining us for part 1 of Distress Crayons for our basic techniques. And be sure to join us in part 2 for some more advanced ideas. Happy stamping, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.